Hello, and welcome to part 5 in our study on how science improves intelligent design. How science proves intelligent design. In this lesson, we're going to look at a number of different animals. First, I want to begin with the giraffe. And just want to take some quick basic things with these animals so that we can look at, are these things possible just through random chance, or are they clear evidence of intelligent design? When you look at the giraffe, it's a beautiful animal, absolutely beautiful animal, and it has that big long legs, then its body and that long neck. With the average adult giraffe, its head is perched about 18 feet above the ground. That's real nice for being able to get the food that's high up in the trees, for having, a nice panoramic view of what's going around you. But what we don't think about oftentimes is, something that is that high. How do you get all the blood up there? How do you get the blood 18 feet up into the air? How do you make it be able to overcome the forces of gravity to get that high? Well, the simple answer is you have to have a very powerful pump. And that's exactly what the giraffe has. The higher you're going to push a liquid against the forces of gravity, the stronger the pump has to be. The average adult giraffe has a heart that's about 2 feet long. It generates a blood pressure about twice that of a human being or any other large animal. Now, here's what we want to start to get into, because it's easy enough to say, well, it's got to get up there higher, so its heart has adapted, and over time it's strengthened and gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, but we want to get a little bit more intricate than that. Because it has this bigger heart, because it has a much higher blood pressure in order to get that blood all the way up to its brain, to the top of its head, 18 feet in the air. The walls of the arteries that are coming directly out of the heart have to be much stronger, because they have to be able to withstand the high pressure that is coming out of that heart. So they have an extra elasticity to them. They're able to bear up under, be able to stretch and not burst, but be able to bear up under that higher pressure. So to prevent the blood from rushing too quickly back down the neck, think these things through. That blood's got to get up there, but then it's also got to come back down. Well, you're, again, 18 feet in the air. So we know how we're going to get it up there. We got a stronger pump to get it up there, but now it's coming back down, and it's got gravity working, I would say, with it, or you could define it as against it, because now it's just going to come rushing back down. Gravity is now on the way up, it's resisting it, so you need the stronger pressure. Coming back down, it's pulling it down, it's going to come down much faster. So how does that get regulated so that you maintain a constant equilibrium in your blood pressure, so that the giraffe doesn't pass out or the giraffe doesn't die? Well, there are jugular veins in the neck. They know how to constrict themselves to restrict the blood flow when it's coming back down. So it gets pushed up, and then as it's starting to come down, the veins will constrict themselves to slow it down so that it doesn't come rushing down too far. So this all works very nice when the giraffe is walking around and it's looking around and it's getting its food. The extra pump pumps it up. When it starts to come down, the veins will restrict themselves or constrict so that the blood doesn't come down quite as fast, maintains an equal blood pressure, so that the animal can function properly. Now when you watch the giraffe and he's eating, now he wants to get a drink of water. So here we're 18 feet in the air, and down comes that head, all the way down to the ground so that he can get a drink. Well, something that, again, we don't usually think of when we're watching the giraffe, but now you're changing that monumental flow of blood. The heart that was pumping so hard, that has that extra pressure to get that all the way up there, that same heart is still pumping, but now the head is down and it's pumping downwards. So the blood pressure could really, really increase, because not only the heart is pumping that hard, now it's not resisting gravity, Gravity is pulling that blood down, just like when it's coming back in the veins. So if there's not something to regulate that, that would just completely blow the brains out of the giraffe. There would just be too much blood under too much pressure, hitting too far. It would get in and blow the brains out, and the eyes would actually be blown out because there's just way too much pressure. So how is the giraffe able to take its head and just lower it down and get a drink and not even blink twice and have its blood pressure not affected at all? Here's how. There are a series of mechanisms working in concert with one another. Let me read them for you. When the head is lowered, special shunts in the arteries supplying in the head restrict the blood flow to the brain. They not only restrict it, they divert the blood flow to a web of small blood vessels. This network of vessels near the brain gently expands to accommodate the increased local blood pressure. So in the brain, there's this special area where the blood can go. It restricts it, slows it down through these mechanisms, and then starts to slowly spread this blood out and gets absorbed in these veins that are around the brain, so that when he lowers his head, it's not a quick whoosh, boom, and winds up killing the giraffe. Valves, here we go again with the valves. Valves in the jugular veins prevent returning blood from flowing backward while the head is lowered. Because now he's down, if you didn't regulate that, then the blood would be drained. All of this is controlled by a complex series of sensors. They constantly monitor the pressure of the blood. And these sensors make whatever adjustments are needed to ensure that the proper pressure is maintained in all situations. Just like we looked at in the human body, there's special things here. So when the head is up, their sensors are working right, pushes that blood up, restricts the flow coming back down through the veins. Now he lowers his head. Now valves are going to shut it off so that it doesn't get too far away. There's an area where it can spread out and go in into the smaller vessels so that not too much blood and too much pressure is put on the eyes and put on the brain. Now you've got him down there drinking water, and all of a sudden he's startled. You've seen this in the nature shows. Maybe there's a lion looking at him or something, or this or that. What happens? Whoop! Up comes the head, and he's got to get off and running. Well, you know, when you're down here like this, try it yourself sometimes when you get up too quickly from a chair, or you're bending down and all of a sudden you jump up real quick, you start for a second to get a little dizzy. Well, when you're talking 18 feet in the air, if he yanks his head up that quickly, very minimum he's going to be disoriented. More likely he's going to get dizzy and pass out, and then he's done because the lion's going to come get him. But whatever, he's going to get dizzy and he's going to pass out here. So what happens? So the proper blood supply is maintained by these sensors in the body, so that the giraffe does not become faint and doesn't pass out. So all of these mechanisms that we looked at, through the valves, through the constricting veins, through all the sensors that are there, it immediately adjusts to keep everything flowing just the way it should flow. And so he won't pass out and die. One other thing to look at with the giraffe. The giraffe's legs. Legs are very long. And this high blood pressure, combined with the effects of gravity on such a tall body, can be a problem for the giraffe's legs. If they were cut, because there's so much pressure, the blood pressure is so much higher to get that blood up the neck, that it's higher throughout the body. So if he was cut with those long legs on the bottom, it would be very easy for the giraffe to bleed to death. If he cuts him on whatever he might cut him on, or something bit him. So to combat this bleeding, the blood vessels in the giraffe's legs run very deep. And they're deep under the skin, the surface of the skin. And the capillaries that do reach the surface are very narrow. The blood cells are about the third the size of a human. So this prevents the blood from, under the high blood pressure, from him overbleeding if there's a cut. Secondly, you can look at, why would the blood pool in the giraffe's legs? Because the giraffe is so tall and the legs are so tall. The skin on the giraffe's legs is extremely tough. Listen to this now. It is tightly fitted, thereby preventing blood from pooling. The skin is so tight that, again, it just wraps itself tightly around the legs, and that prevents blood from pooling. The example that we have in humans is the therapeutic socks that people can wear when their circulation is not right. When the circulation needs to improve and they don't want pooling of blood in their legs, they put on these tight therapeutic socks that improves the circulation. It's built into the giraffe. It's absolutely built into the giraffe. And get this. This is phenomenal. The giraffe's legs have been studied by NASA scientists when they were developing special gravity suits to be worn by the astronauts, that they wanted to help maintain correct blood circulation while in space. So they're now going to send astronauts into space. They want to maintain the correct blood circulation. They need to make them gravity suits. So they went out and they studied the circulation of a giraffe. Now, it's really astounding to me, the scientists who want to design something to protect people go out and study an animal that they say has no intelligent design, that just happened by random chance. What's wrong with that picture? They want to study, understand, and design a suit for the scientists to wear in space, so they go out and they study an animal that they say wasn't designed, there's no intelligent design behind it, it just happened by random chance. Does that make any kind of sense? The giraffe is a finely balanced collection of interconnected and interdependent systems that all show evidence of clear design. Let's move on. The woodpecker. Evolution cannot explain the woodpecker. Let me show you why. It has too many interdependent features that could not have developed gradually over time, or just developed one at a time, over long periods of time. Otherwise, the woodpecker would not have survived. Let me briefly explain what's happening here. When boring into the wood, I'm going to read this for you. When boring into wood in search of food, woodpeckers hammer their beaks into the wood at between 18 and 22 times per second. I mean, that's phenomenally fast. You know, when you hear a woodpecker, you don't hear bop, bop, bop. You hear brr, brr. I mean, that's how fast they're moving. And again, we don't think about it, but their head is pounding into this wood, and they're trying to poke holes into it. So they hit it, and their head's got to stop, and they hit it, and their head stops, and they hit it, and their head stops. When they do this 18 to 22 times per second, they subject their brains to deceleration. That means when they hit it and their brain stops. Then they bang it again and their brain stops. It's deceleration forces of 1,200 Gs with each strike. Every time they hit, 1,000, the force of 1,200 Gs. That is more than 100 times the G force that's required to give a football player a concussion. If a football player hits something or gets hit with the force of 98 Gs, that's enough to sideline him. The woodpecker's getting 1,200 every time it smacks that tree, 22 times in a second. It's phenomenally more. A woodpecker exerts so much force with each strike that it should break its beak. Its beak should just crumble, its skull should crack, and its brain should be turned into mush. But none of that happens. Why? Here's why. Scientists have examined the woodpecker structure to find the answer to these questions. A study at the University of California, Berkeley, analyzed what makes the woodpecker's shock absorbers work so well. They found that the woodpecker's anatomy acts to protect their brains in 4 ways. 1, their beaks are hard, but they're elastic. So when they hit, it has a little give to them, so it doesn't shatter and doesn't break. Their skull bones are spongy. They have, again, a give to them. If they weren't spongy, if they were solid, they'd be so brittle that every time they smacked their head, especially 22 times in a second, the bones would just shatter. But no, they're spongy. There is very little room for fluid between the skull and the brain. This cuts down on vibrations. And number 4, they have a special structure called the hyoid layer. This is attached to the woodpecker's tongue to reduce vibrations. The woodpecker's tongue actually goes all the way around and wraps around the skull, comes around the other side, and comes out again. That's phenomenal in itself, but it all protects the woodpecker's head. The spongy bones and the tough as nail beaks of the woodpecker are inspiring to a new generation of shock absorbers. Here's what's happening. Scientists are studying them, and they're saying, for them to be able to absorb this kind of shock, what can we learn from it? We know that modern airplanes have what's called the black box, where they keep the control system in this box. That box is designed to withstand 1,000 Gs of force. 1,000 Gs. 2 scientists went out and they made a shock-absorbing box designed on the same principles of a woodpecker. Then they bombarded this thing, they pelted it with an air gun, and they found that it protected the contents up to 60,000 Gs. From 1,000 that they had, they imitated the design of the woodpecker, and it now protected it to 60,000 Gs. They said the new woodpecker-inspired shock absorber was a remarkable improvement in the G-force tolerance, 60 times stronger. So we look at the very first woodpecker, and what did that woodpecker have to have? He had to have a beak that can make holes in wood hard enough to bend a nail, because they're banging into hardwood. They had to have strong neck muscles. They had to have a thick skull with a spongy cushion between the beak and the skull. They had long elastic tongues, and I didn't even get in to break this down, because when they poke the hole in the wood to go in, they're going after insects, they're going after bugs. Well, their beak is only so long, they can't stick their beak in there and grab the bug out. Whether it's termites or whatever's in there, it's too far in. So they have a long tongue that comes out I believe it's almost twice the length of their beak that they can send out and put into that hole. How did that get there? And not only do they have that long tongue that can go into the hole, the long tongue has a barb or little hooks on the end of it so it can pierce into what it's going after. And not only does it have the little barbs on it, the tongue has a sticky substance that can just reach in. So they poke the hole with their beak, the tongue comes out, there's little bugs and termites in there, and bingo, it stabs it, has a sticky thing, pulls it back out and eats it. No design there. No design there. It just happened. It just, I mean, the woodpecker over 1 billion years was poking the little holes, stuck his beak in there, couldn't reach in. The bugs are laughing at him going, ha, ha, you can't get us. So the woodpecker comes back and goes, this isn't working. Wonder what I better do here. Well, maybe I'll just somehow invent me a tongue and wiggle the tongue out there, and the bugs just go, they don't care. Well, now maybe I just put a little barb on there so I can stab it. That's working, but I can make it a little better if I made some sticky substance so they all stick to... You think so? You think that's what the woodpecker did? I don't think so. And we go on, the woodpecker has specially designed feet. Its toes are shaped in such a way so that it can stand on the side of a tree, because that's where it's standing. It's not standing on a branch. It stands on the side of the tree and starts banging its head. And it's got to be able to grip that tree or that side of that wood strong enough so that when it starts banging, it doesn't knock it off. And it also has tail feathers that are extra strong, because as it grabs its feet in, here it is on here, it takes its tail feathers and puts it up against the tree to brace itself, so when it's hitting 22 times a second, it doesn't get knocked off the tree. Who thought of all of that? How did that all happen? Are you kidding me? And here's one more thing. They have bristle-like feathers over their nostrils that helps keep out the wood particles when they're banging into the tree. I mean, God thought of everything. Look at the intricacy that is here in a woodpecker. It's absolutely unbelievable. There is no natural way that all of this came together, all of these specific features, over a long period of time. Or the woodpecker would have died. It wouldn't have been able to eat. It wouldn't have been able to get its food. It all had to be there. You don't have billions of years. You don't have millions of years. You don't have 100 years. You don't have 10 years. You got to have it or you're dead, because you won't be able to eat. Charles Darwin said, if it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, then my theory would absolutely break down. End of quote. Hello, Mr. Woodpecker. There you go. Let's move on to a couple of other things. These are kind of things that rolled around in my head that just make me sit back and go, let's think about that. You may have your own, but a couple of things that are here. The birth of a whale. A whale is born in the middle of the ocean. It's born in the middle of the ocean, and yet it breathes air. Why doesn't it breathe like other fish do in the water? Here you are in the middle of the ocean and you can't breathe in the water. You have to breathe air. Yet when that baby whale is born, it knows to keep its blowhole closed. It has the blowhole on the top where it expels the carbon dioxide, where it pulls in air. So it's born in the water. It knows to keep that blowhole closed. And then what does it do? It swims up to the top of the water, to the surface of the water, breaks the surface, opens the blowhole, expels the carbon dioxide, and then pulls in fresh air, closes the blowhole, and goes back down. How does it know to go up? Number one, how does it know I got to keep the blowhole closed because I can't breathe in water? I have to breathe air. How does it know that? And then two, okay, I've got to get up to where the air is. How does it know to go up and not to go down? It's brand new. It's maybe a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes old. How does it know I better get to some air and start swimming down? No, it knows to go up. It knows to go up to the side. How does it know to break the surface? Okay, once I break the surface, it's okay to open this blowhole. I'm not going to drown. Water's not going to come pouring in. All of these things. And then close it, and then I submerge and go back down underneath. How does it know to do this? It's now hungry. What does it do? It swims over to its mother. And it starts to nurse off of its mother and get the nourishing milk that it needs from its mother in order to survive and live. How does it know to do that? How does it know to go there? The mother hasn't taught it. How does it know to go? And second question, how does the mother make that nourishing milk? How did she know to make it? How did she know to make the physical things, the teats over there, so that the whale could come over? Or any animal. Cats, dogs, monkeys, they all have these things to nourish their offspring. How did the offspring know to do it? How do they know how to make these things? A woman with the breasts and the milk. How do they know how to make these things? How does the body produce these things? And I'm not saying what's the mechanical process. How does it know to produce it? How does it know to put the right nutrients in it? How did that whale figure that out, that this is what my baby needs in order for my baby whale to survive? And then, well, I can't spoon feed it. I'm in the middle of the ocean. I can't get a bottle and put the bottle in its mouth like a human. I don't know. So I guess I'm just going to have to develop these little mechanisms with the right tubing and this and that that's connected to the milk that's in my body so that my baby whale or my little kitty cat or the little dog can come over and get the nourishment that they need so that they'll survive and not die. And how fast did all of that have to happen? Because if it wasn't all in place immediately, they're dead. The species is now extinct. If we're billions of years ago, where there's not all kinds of humans running around trying to, then how did the dog do that? How did the monkey survive? How did the cats survive? How did the little kittens get something to eat? It's unbelievable that people would think this happens by random chance. Let me move on. And this is one that was always been interesting to me. Before I was a Christian, I don't know why, I always believed in God. I always believed there was a creator. This is one of the things that convinced me. The spider. I mean, you could do a whole series on the spider. In order to catch its prey, the spider spins an intricate web. Number one, how does it know how to make that web? I mean, you look at a spider web up close, a fully developed spider web, I mean, that is phenomenal. It's not just a string going across the thing. It is phenomenal. How does it know how to spin that? How does its body make that silk to spin the web? And in order for something and they spin the web and a fly flies into it and goes, well, this isn't any good. I can't go anywhere. So it turns around and flies away. No. So the spider looks at that and says, well, that's not good. I've got a web there, and the fly just hit it, and the insect hit it, and they just turn around and they fly away. Maybe I better think this through again. You know what? I'm going to make another web, and I'm going to make that web sticky. So this way when they hit it, they can't get off. Now, did the spider think that up? And if he did, how did he make it sticky? Well, you know as well as I do, the spider web has a web, and that web is sticky. So when anything hits it, it can't get away. It's stuck to it. Here's the thing that always was in my mind. It made me believe that there was a God. I asked myself the question, the spider spins that web, and that web is sticky. And it is sticky to everything that touches it, except the spider. Now, to me, that was a big thing. Maybe to you, you go, yeah. But to me, it was like, why is that web sticky to everything except the spider? If the spider makes a sticky web to catch its prey and then tries to walk over the web, he doesn't go, yo, drop down. No, he's got to walk out and get it. Why isn't he getting stuck? It's sticky to everything except him. How? Absolutely how? Let's move on. And this is mind-boggling to me. Fruit trees, vegetables. You have an apple tree. Now you're not getting to a living human being or an animal. You're looking at a tree. The apple tree produces fruit. How does it know to do that? How does it do it? And even more intricate and more mind-boggling, the apple tree produces an apple with a seed inside of it that is capable of producing more apples. Do you know how an apple seed works? I sure don't. I know you take the apple seed out, you put it in the ground, you water it, and it grows another. But what's inside that seed that produces another apple tree? How does the apple tree know how to make that seed to reproduce itself? And we could go on and on. You've got oranges, and you've got peaches, and you've got grapes, and you've got figs, and you've got pears, and you've got etc., 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 each producing after its own kind. How does it know to do that? How does the banana know how to make another banana tree? How does it know how to make another banana? How does it produce its own fruit? Grass. How does grass, where does grass come from? Grass comes from grass seed. Where does grass seed come from? Grass. Now, if you're just looking at a lawn that's mowed, you don't see the seed. You let the grass grow, and it gets tall enough, it gets to the top, it produces a seed. And that seed reproduces itself. How does it know to do that? Not only how does it know to do that, how does it do it? Flowers, plants, vegetables. You take a pear and you grow a pepper. I had to pee. You grow a pepper and you cut it open. There's all kinds of seeds in there. And what do those seeds do? Those seeds produce more peppers. How does that happen? How does a pepper know how to make another pepper? Another carrot to make another carrot? Another radish to make another radish? On and on we go. The peas, you cut them open and there's all little seeds inside to make more peas. How? Did the pea figure that out somehow? Did this fruit figure it out somehow? Absolutely not. That is just mind-boggling. Just looking at the seeds and how they reproduce themselves, to me right there is enough to say, you got to be kidding me. There is a higher intelligence at work here. There is something that is directing these things, what to do and how to do it. We haven't even touched on the earth itself and in the universe. The perfect precision and position of the earth that we live on. I'm going to skip over that. I mean, it's just phenomenal what's here, of how we're just perfectly located where we're at. With the sun a little closer, we'd burn up. A little further away, we'd freeze to death. On and on and on. The order and the intricacy of the universe, that is just a whole monumental study all in itself. And I encourage you to go look at it. There's no way that happened There's no way that that happened by. Yeah, I mean the way we rotate on our axis and how it gives us the seasons, and we rotate around the sun, and how that all keeps a nice balance on the planet so that the planet doesn't freeze over or the planet doesn't heat up. The rotation so that the planet stays evenly. Otherwise, we'd just burn up on one side and freeze on the other side. And how you can set your clock to the rising of the sun and the setting of the sun and the seasons, and they can tell you what day and what hour and what minute we go from this season to that season to this season. The intricacies and the delicate balance of this whole planet, everything that is here, the water that we have, the air that we breathe, everything just in its right proportions, just in its right thing. How'd that come about? What does science say? Well, billions of years ago there was a big explosion. There was the Big Bang. Boom! And it all happened, and now billions of years later this is what we got. What explosion have you ever seen that has brought anything but chaos? Have you ever seen an explosion that brings uniformity? That brings organization? If anything, it just goes, boom. It may go in one direction, but it's bringing chaos and disorganization and lack of unity. Explosions blow things apart. They bring chaos. They don't bring the delicate balance that we see today in all of this stuff here. Let me summarize, because we're going to move on to the point that really got me to start this whole series. I've presented through the first 5 parts here a basic look at the human body. I haven't really presented all that much that talks about animals or insects or fish, birds, reptiles, plants, vegetation, the solar system, the universe. I touched a little bit of a base with it, but nothing in depth. All of these things present a mind-boggling evidence of organization, of complexity, of precision, of design. All of this coming about. We talked about, I just mentioned here, the fruit trees and the vegetables and things. Of how does all of this thing, how do they know to do what they're doing? How do they know how to reproduce themselves? How does the body know how to function? When we talk about the brain working and all it tells it, and all the neurons and the nerve cells and this and that and the billions of communications going on, how does it know how to do it? How does the human body know how to reproduce itself? How does the seed within a woman know how to produce another baby? How does the sperm inside a man know how to fertilize that seed in order to produce another human being? Or with other animals, whether you're talking about cows or monkeys or goats or fish, how does it know how to, not only how does it do it, how does it know how to do it? How does it know how? How does it know to do it? What is telling it to do it? We're just now discovering how these things work. But how does that come about? That's what I mean by how. What gives all of these instructions to different parts of the brain and how they regulate things? What tells the brain to do that? Something outside of the brain had to tell it, because there's so much order in design. The answer is, and this is what science has shown us, the answer is there is a master plan. There is a master plan that exists for all of this. There is a, quote, user's manual that instructs all of these things how to work and how to function. Each living thing that is there has its own unique set of instructions of how to put yourself together, of how to function, and how to reproduce yourself. Everything has its own unique user's manual. Everything has its own unique master plan. It's the only explanation. What is that master plan? That's what we're going to look at in our next lesson. This is what I believe is absolutely phenomenal and has conclusively, through science, science has shown us these things, that it exists. And this is what I believe conclusively shows that all of creation, every living thing on this planet, comes from an intelligent designer and cannot be from random chance. I trust that you're going to look in on our next lesson as we begin to deal with that topic. Thank you for watching. May the Lord bless you.